Greetings to you and thanks for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to know that you take up time to listen and watch our lessons. We want to say it's a good challenge you're giving yourself by learning with us. We take cognizance of the fact that one of the most challenging issues studying online happens to be self-discipline. So we want to thank you for giving us your time and for being disciplined enough to follow us today. In this lesson, we are going to see how to manipulate functions, how to work around with functions, and how to manage functions in Excel calculations. This video is in a series of other videos that we are creating to help learners of Excel to study with us. So we want to thank you for studying along with us. We also want to say that it gives us great pleasure to know that you are studying because Excel will help you to be productive, first of all, in your office or at your workplace, and it will permit you to create some very beautiful and eye-catching documents. So we call on you to take your study very seriously, despite the fact that it is as well challenging to be disciplined enough to follow closely. You should already know how to create files in the computer using some common applications like the word processors. We're also hoping that as of now, you should be able to edit. Editing means ensuring that what the data you have entered is what you actually wanted to enter. Then you should already be able to format. Format means making sure that the data that you have entered looks good and appealing to the eyes. Alright, without any more waste of time, let's dash onto our PC. On our PC, we have the questions that we're going to be using today. These questions are found in the PDF file that you received some time ago. This is known as the using functions question. We are going to be working with the T1 functions file. Now, you should already have received the T1 functions Excel file. The T1 function Excel file will permit you to be able to execute these tasks in this question. With that, we are going to begin. We have been asked to open the file T1 functions. You should already have received this file, downloaded, and it should be found in your computer. Now you need to go ahead and open the file T1 functions. When you open the T1 functions file, the T1 functions workbook should open. The T1 function workbook contains 4 worksheets. These worksheets are the numbers worksheets found on the numbers tab, the students worksheet found on the students tab, the students summary worksheet found on the students summary tab, and the pool worksheet. Now let's go ahead and check out the numbers tab. We've been told on the question that this numbers tab is the attendance for a series of training sessions run over the course of a week, and with space to calculate some summary data using common functions including count, sum, average, max, and mean. We've been given the names of these functions. Now, the first part of it, the A part, says in cell I2 to L2. Remember that we said this column notation is telling you that it is a range of cell, meaning that it's moving from I2 to L2. Now, we have been told to use functions to calculate the total, average, highest, and the lowest marks for the access all areas classes. Now let's go to our workbook and see. On our workbook, in the cell in row 2, we have access in bracket all areas. Then we have for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we have the number of students who attended these classes. And we have been asked to calculate the total number of students, who attended these classes. So we've been asked to use functions to calculate the total, average, highest, and lowest number of students for the access areas, and it's an attendance for a series of training sessions run over the course of a week. Now let's go ahead and see how to pull this off. For the total, we'll remember that for you to put any function, you begin with an equal to sign. When you have inserted your equal to sign, you can go ahead and use your formulas tab. On your formulas tab, you can use the insert function tool. The insert function tool is the first tool that is found in the functions library a group. You click on the insert functions tool. In the insert function tool, you can now briefly type what you want to do, and we want to look for the total, which means that the sum of the range of these cells. We are going to go ahead and use the insert function tool. We put there that we want to sum, and we hit on go. We want to sum, we hit on go. It gives us all the functions that are related to sum. We have the first one, which says it adds all the numbers in a range of cells, and that's exactly what we want to do. So we're going to hit on OK. When I hit on OK, the function arguments dialog will open. The functions argument dialog will permit me to give the range of cells over which I desire to sum. And Excel's artificial intelligence already knows that if you want to sum a range of cells in I2, probably data is found to the left of that cell. Excel already proposes that he's able to find numerical data, or what we call values, from B2 to H2. That one looks quite all right already, and that is the argument, and we can just hit on OK. Now you notice that that is done automatically. You have not done anything there, and it's telling you that it's from B2, which is the cell you want, to H2, and that is quite okay. So let's hit on enter. When we hit on enter, we can now go ahead and we use autofill to fill this total downwards. Now if we insert the total down, if we autofill the total downwards, remember that for us to use autofill and fill the totals downward, we need to use our fill handle. Our fill handle is found at the bottom right of the active cell. Now let's do that. We will take your mouse pointer to the bottom right of your active cell. Your fill handle will appear, which is identified by a crosshair of your mouse pointer. Now click, hold and drag downwards. When you click, hold and drag downwards, you have auto-filled. Now let's check the formula found in I8 and be sure that it is summing from B8 to H8. Let's check the formula bar. When I go up to the formula bar, I see that it's summing from B8 to H8, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm going to go to the average cell. In the average cell now, when the cell is active, I'll put my equal to sign. Alternatively, instead for me to use the insert function tool, I can just go ahead and type average. If I go ahead and enter average there, the moment I'm entering, Excel is proposing functions that begin with AVE. There are many other types of functions. I want to use the average function, so I'm going to double click on that. When I double click on the average function, it's going to open the arguments dialog now for me. Remember that this time around I have no dialog box that displays, but then I have a tip that is below. Look at this tip. You'll notice that the number 1 is highlighted. When number 1 is in dark like that, it's telling you that you should enter the first number. Remember, we're going to have the average for a range of cells, so I'm going to say number 1 is the cell B2, and when I give B2, I'm going to insert the colon notation. When I insert the colon notation, I'm going to give the last number such that it will give me the average of a range. So I'll click now in H2. When I click in H2, it will give me the average of the attendance for access across the week from Monday to Sunday. Now let's hit on enter. When I hit on enter, that is the average. The average comes out. I can now use autofill to replicate this formula downwards, and I have the average for the other courses. Now let us check, and I will click in the cell J8. When I click in J8, I check my formula bar. When I go up to the formula bar, I notice that in my formula bar, I have the formula that I wanted to have, which is the average from B8 to H8, and that looks quite good to me. Now let me go to the highest in the highest cell. In the highest cell, I'm going to put equal to. When I enter equal to, I'm going to enter max. Max will return the largest value in a set of values. And we are going now to open our brace, and when we open that bracket, we'll be able now to input our first number. Again, we'll do it just like we did for average. Enter the first number, colon, last number, which means that a range of cells, and it returns the highest value in that range. For the lowest, we are going to enter equal to. The lowest value will be minimum. We will use the min function. The minimum function will permit us to have the smallest number in a set of values. We'll have the smallest number, and then we open our bracket. When we open the bracket, we'll give the first reference, this reference to the first number. The reference to the first number is B2. Again, we use the colon notation to autofill to calculate the lowest across a set of values. That will be to H2. Let's hit on H2. When I hit on H2, I'll hit on enter. And again, I'll replicate this downward. For me to replicate this downward, remember I have to take my mouse pointer to the bottom right of my active cell and I click, hold and drag in the desired direction. That has been done. Now let's go back and check the next exercise. The next exercise, we've been asked to replicate these formulae down the columns to obtain results for the other groups. That we have done already. We've been asked now to complete cells C10 to C14 by inserting appropriate functions to calculate figures for the whole data set. Note that there are two possible solutions for most of these. Yeah, exactly. Just like most mathematical equations, we can solve them with one or many other functions, or one or many other possible solutions. So we are going to use the ones that is more convenient for us. Now we've been asked to look for the number of events. For us to look at the number of events, remember that Monday, access class on Monday is an event. Access class on Tuesday is an event. Access class on Wednesday is an event. So I can look at that and I see that I have in total Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, making 7 events for access. Having 7 events also for becoming a what ninja. 7 events for colorful PowerPoints, and the 7 events for the other events. Now we can just look at it at a glance and we notice that our answer for the total number of events would be 7 events for 7 courses, which means 7 times 7, that will give us 49. But then we're not going to do that, because what if we had a huge chunk of data that will not be able to perform the calculations? We want to give a function that will permit Excel to calculate for us. So we're going to use the count function. We're going to count the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. We can as well use the counter function. The counter function will count the number of cells in a range that are not empty. But we don't want but cells that are not empty. We want cells that contain numbers. So I'm going to use the count function. When it opens the bracket, I put my first reference. The first reference is B2, and I'll be using the colon notation such that it should give me across a given number of cells. This time I'm not going to take H2, because when I'll take H2, that will be just for access. And I will not also come down to take B8. If I take B8, it will be just for Monday. And I'll need to go down to H8. When I'll take H8, it's going to include for all the days of the week and for all the other cases. Now let's hit on enter. Keep an eye on the cell E10. If our solution in C10 is correct, then we're going to have OK in E10. Let's hit enter and see. We hit enter, we have 49. 49 is what we wanted to have, and in E10, E10 gives us OK. Remember, that is what we said, that Excel only permits you to do your work smartly, accurately, and with ease. It does not help you to do what you don't know how to do. If normally on a piece of paper, you don't know what number of events will refer to in this question, then Excel will not help you. Right. We have total attendance. Total attendance is because on Monday, we had 24 students attending access class. On Tuesday, we had 39 students. And on Wednesday, we had 43 students. So we want to know the total number of students across all of these classes that were attending our courses. Across these days that attended these classes. Now we're going to use the sum function. When I enter the sum function, I'll open the bracket. Again, I'll be summing across from Monday for access to Sunday for Google Sheet. So let's put the colon notation and click on H8 and hit enter. When we hit enter, we have OK in E11, and that is okay for us. Then average attendance, again, we'll be using the average function, and the average function will return an average, which is an arithmetic mean of its arguments, which can be numbers or even names. So let's take the average function. The average function, the first reference, again, remember we are calculating across all. So we'll go again back to H8 and we hit on enter. It gives us OK. Again, we have the maximum function again to use. The maximum function across the data sets as well. So we enter the colon notation again and we go back there. We hit on enter. Then the lowest is the mean function. We enter the mean function for the lowest. When we enter the mean function, let's go ahead and enter the first number. When we enter the first number, we're going to enter the second number such that it highlights the entire range that we desire to have. And we have OK there. And that is looking quite okay for me. Let me go ahead. I've been asked to switch to the tabs students. This sheet shows the numeracy, literacy, and the science assessment marks. And science assessment marks for a group of primary school pupils. The tests were carried out of 110, 125, and 95 as shown in the row 2, but they need to be shown as percentages. In cell G5, enter a formula to convert the numeracy mark in D5 to a percentage. Now divide the numeracy mark by the value in D2 and format as appropriate. Use absolute references as appropriate to ensure it will replicate down the column. Now let's go ahead and see how to pull this off. We have been asked to go to the students sheet. On the students sheet, we have marks for numeracy, literacy, and the sciences. And the maximum mark is 110 for numeracy, 125 for literacy, 95 for sciences. So this student, Helen Jones, has 65 over 110, and we've been asked to give this mark as percentage. Percentage means this mark all over 100. So on a sheet of paper, we need to put 65 divided by the maximum marks times 100. But that's not what we're going to do in Excel. We're going to format this cell as a percentage. For us to format a cell as percentage, we'll go to the Home tab. On the Home tab, we go to the Numbers group. In the Numbers group, we'll click. When we click on this little drop down here, we're going to have the various options. Let's hit on percentage. When we hit on percentage, we have formatted this cell to be in percentage. So I'm now going to say equal to whatever value will come out there will be in percentage. Percentage means will be all over 100. Now let's go ahead and see how to pull this. We'll go ahead. We want to take the value in cell D5 divided by / the value in the cell D2. We hit on enter. When we hit on enter, we have 59.09%. That is looking quite okay for me, but that is not going to help me replicate downwards. Remember that in the question, we were advised to use absolute references as appropriate. Now let's check which is the reference that needs to be absolute. We need to have a reference that will remain, that will not be changing. When I go to my equation, I will notice that the cell D5 will be changing downwards. And if I allow D5 there, I can also replicate across. If I replicate across, D5 will change to E5 and will change to F5, and that will be okay. But D2 will also need to be changing. If I replicate across, D will change from D to E, from E to F. So D will be changing. So I can allow D like that. But then what about 2? 2 will not need to be changing because the marks are found only in row 2. So 2 will not need to change, but every other thing can change, but not 2. So let's hold 2. For us to hold 2, we need to use the dollar mark. We put dollar mark before 2, and then we hit on enter. Remember, notice that the answer remains the same, but now I can autofill across. Autofill now across means I will no longer need to enter a formula for literacy and the sciences. And when I autofill across, I can now autofill downwards. When I autofill downwards, I will also not be expected to enter formulas for these other ranges. And let's check up here to see if we have OK. We have OK in G3, H3, and I3. That means what we have done, it's quite OK for us. Now let's calculate for average. The average percentage would be equal to the average percentage for numeracy, literacy, and sciences. It means average for the range of cells, numeracy percentage to science percentage. I hit on enter. I have the average percentage. The highest percentage again is the maximum percentage. The maximum percentage from numeracy to sciences. Then I hit on enter, and again I have the minimum percentage. Remember that we are not replicating across because this is the average function, this is the highest function, this is the lowest function, so we will not replicate across for those functions. So we say equal to the minimum, we open our bracket, the minimum percentage to minimum percentage on numeracy to minimum percentage for sciences. We hit on enter. Now we can replicate this downwards. and there is no need for any absolute reference there. There's no need for absolute references because everything will change, and we have OK above, and that looks quite all right for me. Now, we have done this already. We have copied the formula down. In column J, we have used our average function to calculate the average percentage mark for each student. And likewise, we've done it for the other ones. Now, let's go now today tab Students Summary. In this sheet calculates some summary figures for the data on Students Sheet. In cell B6, enter a function that will count the number of pupils listed in column A of the Students Sheet. On the Students Summary sheet, we've been told that the student's summary sheet will permit you to calculate some summary figures for the data on the student's sheet. Remember that we are using a sheet to calculate data that is found on a different sheet. And in cell B6, we've been asked to enter a function that will count the number of pupils listed in column A of the student's sheet. Number of pupils listed in column A of the student's sheet. Let's go ahead and do that. In cell B6, we need to have the number of students that will count the number of pupils listed in column A of the student's sheet. Column A of the student's sheet. So I'll put my equal to sign. When my equal to sign is already inserted, I'll click on the student's sheet. When I click on the student's sheet, I need the number of students listed in column A. The number of students listed in column A is from, so we'll say equal to, we count the number of students from A5 to A55. When we have from A5 to A55, we hit on enter. It gives you 50. Now check out our formula bar. When we go up to our formula bar, notice that it is counting from the student's sheet. When you have students exclamation mark, it is telling you that it's coming from the student's sheet. So this reference A5 is A5 of the student's sheet to A55 of the student's sheet. And we see we have OK there. And that is looking quite all right for me. Let's go ahead. The next exercise, we've been asked to, the collection cells B2 to D4 is intended to calculate the average, highest and lowest percentages in the three assessments. In cell B2, enter a function to calculate the average of numeracy results on the student's sheet, column G, and add the appropriate functions to find the highest and lowest numeracy results, and similarly find the average, highest and lowest for literacy and the sciences. Let's go ahead and check that. We've been asked that in cell B2, let's calculate the average percentage for the numeracy students, the average of the numeracy percentage. All right, the average for numeracy percentage, we'll say equal to average. We'll now go to our students sheet. We've been asked average or numeracy percentage. That will be from G5 to G, from G5 to G54. From G5 to G54. G54. That is okay. And I'll hit on enter. When I hit on enter, I have the numeracy and now I can autofill across to have for literacy and sciences, and that gives me okay. In the same way, I can look highest, and the highest is maximum. We'll take maximum. When we take maximum, the first data will be from the student's sheet. Maximum for numeracy would be G5 to G54, and we hit on enter. Then we autofill across. When we autofill across, we have OK there. Then minimum will also be minimum for the students tab, numeracy from G5 to G54 again, and we hit on enter. Then we can also autofill across. Then we have OK there. That looks quite good for me, and it is all right. Let's go to our next exercise. We've been asked to switch to the tab tool. In the tab poll, you are organizing an event and you need to know which days people can attend. There are 3 options: Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. In F4, F5, and F6, use counter to find the number of respondents for each day. Account for the possibility of an unlimited number of further respondents adding their names. Let's go to the poll sheet. On the poll sheet, we've been asked to look for the total number of students on Tuesday, total number for Wednesday, and total number for Thursday. Now let's check that out. In the cell F4, we say equal to counter. When we enter the counter function, we hit on enter. When we double click, it gives us the possibility to enter the first value. The first value should be A to A. Remember, we have been asked to account for the possibility of an unlimited number of further respondents adding their names. An unlimited number of respondents adding their names will mean, therefore, that we are taking the entire column A. It means that wherever somebody enters a name in column A, it will be included in our list. But then there is an entry in row 1. In row 1, we have Tuesday. We want to remove that 1 entry from it. So we're going to say -1 and we hit on enter. When we hit enter, we have OK in H4, and that is all right for me. Now look at that function. I'm subtracting 1 because I have Tuesday here. This Tuesday is just a heading and it should not be included in the number of respondents. That's why I've removed this one from my from my equation. I'll go to Wednesday and I'll do the same. I'll say equal to counter for Tuesday again will be counter B to B. B to B -1. -1, which is Wednesday, where that is a row 1 which contains but Wednesday. We hit on enter. We have OK. That looks quite good for me. Then equal to counter again, counter for the row C. That's C to C. When we say C to C, we are saying the row C -1 again, and we hit on enter and we have OK here, and that looks quite all right, and that is good to go for me. Right, thanks very much for taking the patience to go through this exercise with us. We know that it's not been easy, but we call on you to practice it over and over again. You have the questions with you, and you have the functions or the Excel file T1 functions with you. Go ahead and practice with it. Make sure you practice as many times as possible until these exercises appear to be second nature to you. Then we're going to have other exercises in subsequent lessons, and we'll have exercises in which we're going to combine functions, and we're going to use quite a lot of complicated functions in our subsequent lesson. Hope you did learn something today. Today we handled functions, and we handled functions like the count function, the sum function, the average function, the maximum function, and the minimum function. We went as far as using the counter function, and we also provided for a possibility of an unlimited number of further respondents adding their names and their entries being taken into consideration in our equations. Do well to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss other educative content like this. Excel is very, very interesting, and we're going to take you through all the interesting features of Excel. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll have a nice time studying with Excel.